Okay, there we go. I'm gonna say it again now that you can hear me. I forgot to launch the software before I switched to the scene, so I was like, not here. Oh, that's the funny thing. The subtitles pick up on a different process, so even if I'm talking in OBS forgets a different process handles the closed captioner, so you could still hear me just with your eyes. That's how that works. So yeah, that's a thing that happens. I'm gonna see who's here, because I just started and I already feel like I'm an hour behind. It's been that kind of day. I spy a Pyrex. Hello! And we got a Cozy. And we have a Hedgie. Mighty fine, mighty fine. A couple others lurking. By all means, feel free to do so. Indeed. Where did my music go? The music took a nap. I'm telling you. Server says? There we go. Okay. Just like to say, I had it working, and then it was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a problem, and I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna be a problem. Is that just what's going to happen? I'm telling you right now. Okay, all right. Tonight's very straightforward. For any of you who have been keeping an eye on my running notes for the Proto Head build, I finally unboxed one of the big displays. They're 32 pixels tall and 64 pixels long. OBS working is that has been quote. I would have to agree. Oh my word. Well, that reminds me, I need to turn on my other microphone. Well, I suppose we'll check to make sure this isn't broken when we get to that scene. Yeah, I'm making sure at least get the microphone on. So yes, with that out of the way, running notes. What's next? A running fridge. Yes, you probably could vote for it. You know, next on The Price is Right. That's the kind of gig, you know. Are you gonna bet the dollar? Maybe you are. Maybe you aren't. You don't know. Neither do I. There's nobody else. So yes, my running notes. The notes that tend to seem to run away from me. More than support me. That's where we're at. I started to work with the big displays, and I initially used the wrong angle to try to understand how to use them. I really thought, with what I had learned thus far, I could just grab the project with the privileging code, and I could like look through it and have a decent understanding of what was already going on. Honey Pine, welcome on in. What I had quickly discovered that the code in that project that I was planning on using does in fact not compile at all. And I started just like strip away different parts of it, just trying to like pull out the graphics that I wanted to use. No, it got worse. So I decided I'm gonna shelve that for right now, and let's take another angle. So I thought, okay, let me do what I know has worked for me to get me this far. Let me find a simple example, read through documentation, and then throw something in the terminal and see what happens. So this took me a little bit. I was tipped off to one thing I was gonna need to know, because I got the 2.5 pitch display, because the wires for green and blue are reversed. I'll show you that in a little bit here. But so I knew that going into it before I touched anything, and that was true. But I had a little bit of a crash out because it looked like it was going to be way more difficult to even use than I thought it was going to be. Thankfully, after spending a little time in the documentation and looking at how the constructor works, It's weird. It looks like it operates a lot like the tiny displays we've worked with, but just on a larger scale. There's a lot more pins involved, but that's because there's a lot more stuff. There's a lot more hardware involved that makes up one of these panels. I'm going to point out some stuff on the back here on something that I don't believe we talked about on the channel before, and that's a shift register. I've toyed with them, and I'm pretty sure offline. I don't think I've talked about them here on the channel before. So we're going to look at that. I'll show you the cool example, and then we're going to pivot to Golf with Friends. Go play a couple of rounds. So that's what we're going to do in a nutshell. So I'm going to, without further ado, jump into the terminal. Here, just a moment. I need the right scene. I want that one. There we go. That one's more yellow. And if you could pick up on that detail, you might know why. Windows 11 has this thing called nightlight mode, which adds a yellow hue to the screen. And the way I'm capturing it this way picks up on that setting. The other way you just saw briefly, it does not. Because if it was, everybody will do it, and everyone would be super. And when everybody's super, no one will be. Oh wait. So that's the funniest thing, is that I have to admit, Syndrome, when you think about it, didn't really sound like a villain, other than, you know, if we look past the, you know, sending a robot to destroy buildings and stuff, the actual, like, giving people things to help them make their lives better. But yeah, no, we're not here to talk about you know, movie dips, but seriously, Syndrome took the wrong angle, but had, I would think, a good direction if you really wanted to just help people. But that's not the way he spun it, which is why he's the villain and got sucked into a wind turbine. Don't use capes, friends. The Randid interpretation of Incredibles is interesting. Fair. That's fair. It's an interesting movie. I've watched it so many times. I don't know, it's a feel-good movie. Okay, so I, oddly enough, don't have a lot here in the way of code, because again, I said this is just a simple example. Simple being 50 lines, with very few comments. Don't add capes to your PC, they will get stuck into the fans. That is an accurate statement. Don't do that. Your intakes will live longer. Yeah. So, no capes. Wait, hang on. I'm gonna do it right. No capes. I am too tired for this kind of commentary. Oh no. Alright. I'm gonna say some words. Alright, first things first, I did myself a favor by adding a link back to the Adafruit website with, this is the shortened version of the example. It cuts out a lot of extra code that does not do anything, but it's there for all the different types of hardware you could potentially run this on. Well, I only have one piece of hardware I'm plugging this into, not like 20. So that's how the example is only 50 lines. As opposed to, actually, if we just pull it up quickly here. Yes, under what file, examples, and then I want to look at the DSP. It's the portal. Oh, there you go. The Proto Matter is the name of the library. And if we just come up to the quote-unquote simple example, in air quotes, I'll just show you real quick. This is the example with all the definitions for a bunch of different boards we're not using, and a decent amount of comments. So this example is 350 lines. The example I'm going to walk through is 50. That's 300 less lines of code that we're not going to look at. You are correct, good sir. There are numbers, and associated with those numbers are an awful lot of words we're not going to look at. Because we don't need to. There's other examples like with animations and stuff that I do want to toy with, but again, I need to do more research, yada yada, things that get better, I learn more, you know, it's the path that travels. The path that travels? No, that's not right. It's the road less traveled. Those were the words I was looking for. They're on back order, like most of the world right now, like the RAM supply in DDR5 spaces. Why are we hearing like people like beating each other up in the background here? What is happening to my radio? All right, there we go. Okay, so yeah, so we got that right, and then I had to add some comments because my God, I tell you right now, I got kind of lost in the sauce on this one, because the example. Now I added this comment and this comment to help me keep track of what in God's name on the green earth was happening on these two lines, because there was no comment of which pin we were talking about here. So on the back of one of these displays, there are 2 pins for red, 2 pins for green, 2 pins for blue, and then there's 4 different control pins, a clocking pin, a latch pin, and an OE pin. The displays I've shown you in the past are 4 wires. Ground, signal, and where are they 3 wires? Oh, yeah, ground voltage. Oh yeah, SDA and SDL. So that's the serial line and then the chip select line. How are you? Also, heck, I am tired this evening. Also, hello, but that's okay. I still want to come on here and show y'all stuff because I like doing stuff and things. Oh, we also got Porch. Hello. Like guess. Oh no, smudge the visor. Why must you do this to me? God, do you know how hard it is to get fingerprints out of a visor? Why do you think this is a matte black? Is this how Gaston feels when he looks at a book? Hold on, now hold on. let me explain myself, okay? Just a little bit. Because I promise it'll make a little bit of sense. Just a smidge. There's a whole lot here. There's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be plugged in, right? I normally have 4 wires, okay? This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 wires. That's a lot of wires, not including ground and in voltage, which makes it 16. How can I read this? There are no pictures. Oh, that's a good movie. Congratulations and promotion. That? Did I miss something? Oh, I've been promoted to a very important present. Oh, hush now. Yeah, fine. I also noticed that one of the changes that I made apparently didn't apply on the website. I'll have to fix that later. But that's okay, that's not. Someone's missing a badge that's supposed to have one. I like this platform, but it kind of kicks me. It kicks me up a flight of stairs. That's okay, I'll fix it later. To indicate which pins we're using, you have to feed them in a correct order into what's called the constructor. And the simple concept of a constructor, I was trying to think about a good way to describe what a constructor is. And a constructor is like going to the ice cream shop, right? Now, when you walk into the ice cream shop, you want ice cream, right? And when you do so, you have to tell them what you want in your order, right? So maybe you say that you want an ice cream cone with 2 scoops, and you want a sugar cone, maybe you want sprinkles, right? For the person behind the counter to make the kind of ice cream you want, you have to be able to tell them the flavor of the ice cream, the cone or cup you want to put it in. And if you don't answer one of those questions that are required, then they can't fulfill your order. A constructor in programming works the same way. I have to tell the constructor which pins do which thing, and there's a minimum amount of things I have to pass to each quote-unquote constructor. It's different depending on which constructor you're using. In this case, we're working with big displays, so this library has a very large set of constructors. Now I want ice cream. Same, how dare you, Brute? Listen, it's relatable. Give the toaster a break. If that's not easy to follow along, I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I'll try my best. And these pins, I have to lay them out in an order that the constructor is expecting, or the display is going to look like hot garbage. For those of you who are in the server, you would see the absolute gargle of lit up LEDs, and it wasn't a good set. So I left myself some notes, because the order that these pins are declared in is the first red pin, the first blue pin, the first green pin, the second red pin, the second blue pin, and the second green pin. And then I did the same thing down here with the addressing pins, because it goes in the order of A, B, C, D, and E, which is lovely that that's in order. Ice cream is related to electronics. Noted. Exactly. And then these aren't array of pins. These are just easy. It's just the clock pin is this one. The latch pin is this one. The OE pin is this one. We're not too worried about what they're doing, other than the fact is that we just select the right one. And on our microcontroller, we actually just push it into the back of the display. So all these pins are already predefined and lined up. I just have to tell the software physically where those exist. So what we have here is this class variable that has from the Proto Matter library that's called matrix. This is the display. Like I said, it's just an example. I didn't change the name of the display. These will be the 2 screens that everybody else gets to see, that make up the side panels. There's some stuff here that I love that I found in the documentation, because this right here, this first number, is you telling the constructor how wide the panel is. If you've got multiple chained together, then you add them together. So we're going to have 2 panels. In this example, I don't, but when we do it for real, this will be 128, because it'll be a total of 64 times 2. And then 4 was the image quality. I don't remember what the 1 does. I did see that in there. And then we pass it. Oh wait, a hover. Hover, what does the hover say? Oh, come on now. Tell me things. RGB count, RGB lists. Yeah, I don't remember what that is in the context. And then the pins. And then what was this for? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th one. Oh, come on. Don't disappear on me like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Address count. Oh, okay, so we have 4 addressable pins. Or 4 addressing pins, because it's A through E. And then the actual pins where they are. It took me a while to figure out the correct order here, because on the panel I have the position of where the green and the blue are reversed. And that's just specific to this exact panel I had purchased. It seems to be just an issue with it. Can we put ice cream in electronics then? No, I don't think we probably should. That sounds like it could go poorly. From there, we are starting the serial monitor, but you're gonna notice that what makes up the pretty image we're gonna look at, none of it's down here in the loop. And that's because this is an incredibly simple example that doesn't change. It's static. So we're simply gonna draw our example on the display. We're gonna show it. And then this loop shows the refresh rate of the screen. And this screen, believe it or not, refreshes at 200 frames per second. 200. Most computer monitors refresh at 60. This one refreshes at 200. And it's funny because it does say in the documentation that if you refresh it slower than that you'll see flickering. And I'm like, my guy, I didn't even know we were going to get that many frames to begin with. This panel has more frames than some budget laptops. That's crazy sauce. So there's that. Now, this does follow a very similar structure to the tiny display I showed you that menu we built that we're going to use to select our faces once I figure that out. I invite for CRT VRC brute face. That sounds incredibly heavy. Kiss your shoulders goodbye. Your neck is going to be one vertebrae shorter if you do that. You ever move one of those things? CRTs were hilariously heavy, especially the 27-inch CRTs. The 27-inch CRT iMacs, I've only heard stories of them, but they were so heavy that they could collapse a table if they weren't supported correctly, because those suckers were hefty. In more ways than one. So we do start a serial monitor, but it's not because we're doing anything special. We're just seeing the refresh rate. And then just like other things we've used, I couldn't believe how similar this was, because it looked like it was going to be way more difficult than it was. And that made me a little sad when I realized I just should have looked at the documentation like a smart toaster. We begin the display to inform the code we're going to start using it. We then check to make sure that it actually started. And then we end up setting the brightness. Let's see here. It says make 4 color bars, red, green, blue, and white, with a brightness ramp. So the brightness will start at off and then ramp up to full brightness. And then, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4 different bars, which will equate to 4 different levels of brightness, which I'm gonna be honest to you, I didn't really read too hard at the code. I didn't realize it was different brightnesses. We'll see if the camera can pick up on that. And then this is a thing that helped me troubleshoot to make sure I had my pins in the right order. Indicates right here we're drawing some really basic shapes. We're drawing a red circle, a green square, or this is rectangle, and a blue triangle. When the pins are in the right order for the library, with my hardware, that gave us a blue rectangle and a green triangle. So once I had the pins in the right order and that matched the comments, I then knew I had things where they needed to be. Once we've drawn to the buffer, just like we have before with the small screen, we then have to actually tell the code to show the person who's looking at it. So we have to then do the matrix.show to then copy what's in RAM over to the actual display. And that's it. That is all the code does. It captures some information. It was going hard. Yeah, I popped us over to the next track. Oh, I'm sorry. It was getting hard for me to hear myself over the sounds of angriness. Oh yeah, and then we just print Adafruit's name because, you know, she's the brains behind the store. So I'm gonna turn us over to the camera I guess I'll check to make sure my microphone works first. And then we'll plug it in. Testy test, testy testy. There we go, that works better now. Now imagine if McDonald's ice cream machine was a Proot. Well, in that case, either it would never be broken or always be broken. There is no in between. Alright. I don't know if this will look better with lights off or lights on, so I'm just going to leave the ambient light as it is right now, as I do a little show and tell with what we currently have. So, as I present, actually, yeah, hang on, let me turn on the lights because I do want to point out some of these smaller chips that are on this board. Alright, so I have before us here the panel. Every one of these dots is a really, really small LED. Like, I'm going to get this way up there in your face so that you can see, there they are. They're really, really tiny. And on the back of one of these boards, we've got some stuff going on back here. We've got a bunch of these really tiny chips that are littered all over the board. Like if I just move us around, you're going to see they are absolutely everywhere. There are 20 of them. Those are the shift registers. So what those do is that allows us to condense all the pins we need for this down to a handful of chips that then get plugged into a handful of pins. And since we're going to use more than one, the first display is plugged in here into our microcontroller via the ribbon cable that was included. And then we have this power cable with a set of alligator, spade? I don't know. We have these power connectors. I'm trying to remember what this connector head's called. These are pretty serious for power, because they only want 5 volts like you would get out of a phone charger, but the amperage could be incredibly high. And interestingly enough, they give you the ability to plug in 2 of these with one harness, which is really nice because I need exactly 2 displays. So when I power this on, I need to connect external power, a solid power supply that can handle. Each panel can use up to 4 amps worth of power. So the battery is going to need to be able to accommodate some pretty serious action because of how much of these can draw. I've got some really cool things in mind for this project, which I know is going to not use all the LEDs at once, but the more LEDs that are on at once will cause more amp draw. So we have to account for that with the animations we're going to end up using here. I see a 64 by 32 P3. Well, you are correct. It is a 64 by 32. It's a 2.5 inch pitch. Orc lugs. Thank you, Mountain Man. I, for the life of me, could not remember what on earth it was called. No Persona 3. Oh, it's okay, Hedgie. Just cut one end of the lug to fit into the terminal on the back of the barrel adapter. There. I did want to look to see how much amperage that the lugs put out on the microcontroller, because since I plan on using 2 of them, and I really do, I'm going to come close to the animations I have in mind, are going to come pretty close to that 4 amp limit. I don't know how bad it'll be. These are the lugs, and they comes with the screws, so that you can affix these under the screws. So the positive goes there, and the negative goes there. May or may not just wire this directly into the battery I'm going to plan on making. I haven't made up my mind yet. It really depends on how much power I draw based on the animations I come up with. Oh, you're integrating yours. Yes, I am integrating mine because I'm also building my own power supply for this project. I am going to have a custom battery off of my hip. And the idea is to be able to supply enough power to get me through the day without having really more than one battery swap over the course of wandering around the convention for the day. That's the idea. I don't know if I can put out that kind of power without, again, more than one battery swap, but again, we shall see. At this point, if I did not connect this microcontroller to the computer, it wouldn't cause anything bad to happen. We just wouldn't see the refresh rate appear. But know that this is already programmed with the code you saw there, and this end just needs power. But I'm going to plug it into the computer so we can also see that refresh code pop up in the terminal. And then these are going to get connected to my variable power supply. Now, something to keep in mind, if you are deciding to take on this project yourself, and you're starting to toy with power supplies with the variable voltages. The one I have on the bench here, actually, you know, it's not powered on yet. That's all right, I can move it. This one is a variable power supply. So on the front is a display and a bunch of knobs. And when I turn this on, the voltage that appears up there, I can vary with the knob. And then down there is how many amps it's pulling. The thing that's important to know is that you don't set it too high and burn stuff up. But the other thing that you have to keep in mind is the startup voltage. This is currently tuned in to 4.2 volts DC. And when I first turn it on, I noticed that it jumps to 11 volts. That would be a really bad thing to connect our LED matrice to, which means I don't want to attach these leads until I turn the power supply on, so that I don't accidentally fry something. I kept them separate just in case to see quickly if the controller or the panel failed. Ah, fair. Good stuff. So I'm going to turn on my, 11.3 volts. That would have been bad. We don't want that. Now, I do want to show you some of the really weird behavior depending on the order you power this stuff up in. I don't necessarily know how I'm going to handle this. I think that if everything is powered on at once, we shouldn't get strange behavior, but I'm going to show you anyway. So I'm going to attach power to this panel without connecting power to the microcontroller, just so we could see if we get the weirdness. Or maybe it was the other way around. We'll see here. So there's my ground connection with the alligator clips. And then I might connect the power, the positive. Nope, it was the other way around. Okay, real quick then. Real quick, I'm not going to connect these. I'm going to just connect the microcontroller to the computer without powering the display, because it does some really weird stuff. I realistically don't think this damages anything, so I'm going to do it again anyway on purpose. Yep, that happens. It looks very, very confused. Because it is getting voltage, but it's only getting voltage on the ribbon cable, not through all the power that's supposed to be going to the shift registers. So it is getting power from the microcontroller, but without sending enough power to actually turn on all those registers, you get this really weird looking design that appears on the panel. So that's a little weird. So now I'm actually going to power it on for real by connecting the appropriate wires and being sure that I don't accidentally short something out here, because I am working with raw leads. That's educational. Oh, evening IT gamer, welcome on in. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to plug this into the computer now. And we're gonna... That's right! I forgot about this. So, this is a very strange oddity, and Mountain Man, I'm curious to see if you've experienced this before. If I have power to the panel, the microcontroller is not on right now. I don't get picture, because the microcontroller doesn't start. I'm gonna have to disconnect the power from the panel to allow this to start. As you'll notice, there's no LEDs on this right now. It's not powered on. That's because it's sitting here and it's stuck. So I'm gonna pull the positive wire from here, which caused this to come on. The panel, the microcontroller came on, and now I supply power to the rest of the board, and the example loads. Which I truthfully don't understand. That actually does look half decent on camera. Let me turn off the overhead and see what that looks like without that on. Kind of curious to see. So I'm going to attempt to pick this up now, carefully. I can put this a little bit more into frame. So, as the code has indicated, these pixels aren't dead. Remember how I said that we ramped up the brightness, which the camera actually kind of picks up. We start from off, and then we get brighter all the way up to maximum brightness at the end, which the maximum value is 255. And then because the leads are reversed, I reversed the colors for where the green and blue pins are. But that's how we have the red circle, the green rectangle, and the blue triangle, with the lines in the bottom and Adafruit's name at the top, just like we told it to using the text. And with that same train of thought, my plan is to use some software to design some static faces and see if I could figure out how to pull the animations out of the other project I was looking at. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of mish-mash with the actual what I'm displaying is going to be on the screen here, but I'm really looking forward to it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I said that this does plug into the back. So right now I have these soldered onto the side because I've been prototyping, and it doesn't quite sit right on the back of here when I just plug it in. So I use the ribbon cable instead. The ribbon cable is legal, and so is just pushing this connector directly into the back of this first port. And then when we go to chain the second display, we use our second power connector. We then use the ribbon cable to plug this guy into the second display. And then that powers us up. Right now, with this design and the fact there's no animation, nothing is moving, I am pulling 0.17 amps of power at 4.2 volts. So it's not ridiculous, but that's kind of where we're at. Looks nice. Thank you. My panels will have 3 lights on when the controller not on. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, that's funny, Mountain Man. I've actually gotten it to do that. Hang on, let me power the microcontroller back off. I did cause it, or wait, was it the power supply I turned off? Well, let's find out. Oh, I turned the power supply off. Is it that? I think that's what it was. Nope, it did that. That's interesting. Well, I already know what happens if I power it on with that connected. We don't want to do that. I'm not shoving 11 volts into this. That would be bad. We got that. What about if I kill the microcontroller? I caused that to happen. There we go. That's what happens. I get a nice little indication of Starry Night when the panel starts but then loses its programming from the controller. And it just seems that it's, yeah, that. So I can tell you I do know what that is, because I did spend some time with shift registers before I picked up this project. Let me check quick in the other room and see if I still have it wired together. Because if I do, I can show you with a moving animation why that occurs. Please tell me it's still out here. Is it still out here? It is still out here. Excellent. Good. This is what happens when you're prototyping. You just kind of put stuff places, and things occur. And this is no different. So, as I had mentioned, there's a shift register, 20 of them on that display. I have a single shift register sitting on this breadboard. I'll get that better in frame here in a minute. And what happens is that the shift register, when you start sending code to it, it keeps track of, in its own internal memory, which things you've told it to turn on and which things to turn off. The problem is, when it no longer hears from the microcontroller, those don't clear. Losing power does not empty what's in the shift register. So this just so happens to have decided these are the things it was going to remember during its last instruction set. So they stay on. And I'll be able to show you that by supplying power to this other project. I can actually show you what happens. It's kind of funky. I saw something in chat here. Where am I at here? Vendor for specialized electronic parts. Oh, who Adafruit is? Yeah, so Adafruit Hedgie is a really cool lady who makes and designs these boards. Ooh, ooh! I didn't think that was going to happen. That's fine. I just moved this. She designed this. She took the chip. She figured out the product, And then she also sold the panels and the design of these that we can use to buy and then make our own cool stuff. So she is also a maker on a commercial scale, but a maker nonetheless. And she has some really fun unboxing videos that she does. If you have any kind of interest into electronics, highly recommend you check out her website. She has some really fun stuff. That's how I came to find the Wii controller that we're using for this project, amongst the other parts you see on my bench. Oh, we have a watch streak. Ooh, thank you, gamer. That is greatly appreciated. You know, it's funny. I did spend a decent amount of time trying to figure out if I can make a sound notification for streaks. It does not seem to be a thing in Streamlabs, or in what's the other one? Sound alerts. Neither of them seem to have anything for it, which was a little disappointing. So we'll probably make a command for that, because I wanted to do something. I spent a couple hours looking and I couldn't find anything. I use that to help me in troubleshooting power issues. Yeah, by the panel only. That's fair. I seem to use the glove for facial control. That's fun. Talking about makes me want to work on my M16 MK5 ideas I have. Good, good. I will be the bad influence. Or the good influence, depending on how you see the situation. But let me put our very bright friend aside here for a second, so that I could show you the so I could show you what we got going on here. Let's see. Alright, that's powered off. The voltage is drained out. Let me scoot this out of the way. Carefully. Okay. So we got some tiny chips going on here. I think do I still have some of those in the bag? I'm convinced I have one of the shift registers not in a board here. Let me see, is this the right one? 74 HC, yeah, 595. This is the right one, shift register. Yep, that's what I'm looking for. Cool. So that's the part number for the chip that's sitting in this breadboard. And if I can open this container, I will show you what one looks like up close. There we go. So this is the bigger version of the tiny ones that we could just barely make out on the back of the other ones. This is a shift register, and it's got a bunch of little pins, and that is what's sitting down here in the middle of all this action down here. That's what's hiding in here, is the shift register. And what it does is it controls these LEDs using the program that's on this Leonardo board. So let me plug this into power and you can actually see what happens here. But this will be a really good example to show you what happens when a shift register loses power. So this is going to go through a couple of different designs. I don't necessarily know. The patterns is probably the better word. So it's going to go left to right, right to left, and then jump in sequence from the outer edges to the center. Now, when I disconnect this from the computer, you're going to see briefly that it's going to stop, it'll shut off, but when I plug it back in, keep a sharp eye on which LED starts before it resets. Very briefly, the edges stayed on because that's where the program left off. But it didn't know any different. And that is in part of what happens to the shift register. Now, if I remember correctly from the way this is wired, if I remove power from the computer and I just supply voltage from my power supply, it's not going to get any instruction sets from the microcontroller, but it will have power. So this should actually be a really easy way for us to just briefly look at where the register left off.
think of the register like taking an order, and it's just stopping exactly where it was left off. You know, like a customer says, you know, I would like a bottle of ketchup, and like you're already reaching for the ketchup, and you just stop in your tracks while you're waiting to hear what on earth is the other thing they were about to ask you for. We're gonna turn this on. Oh, I forgot that the microcontroller will in fact pick up. I don't have it connected here, but it's getting power from the board because it's wired in. Yeah, I forgot. I had to disconnect the microcontroller. Please, I have to pull a wire, and then it'll stop working. Let me see where I'm at here. Like in BRC, they're full-time suit maker. Oh goodness. I don't even want to think about trying to do that. Using fingers to select what expression to use. The expressions IRC. That's crazy sauce. Well, I'm using a menu. That's going to at least be the attempt here. Some do that also, some do face tracking before it. But yeah, tester. My finished proto is well a test. If I could, the M16 MK5 would be a lot more clean if I did it. I honestly think, Mountain Man, that if you did want to put more time into it, you could make it neater, but to be honest, I've seen your person and it looks really nice. So, I mean, I feel like it's kind of like the artist's, where the artist looks at the art and thinks it's not good enough. Trust me, from someone from the outside looking in, it looks nice. Especially the orange tint on the visor. I love that. Alright, I'm going to purposely make this lose connection to the 5 volts. So I have to pull the white wire? White wire in position 1, 2, 3, position 4. Okay, so I'm going to pull the power from the microcontroller. And just like that, I have stopped the shift register in its tracks, because now it's no longer getting instructions from the microcontroller. Power is still present, so those LEDs won't turn off, and the program is still running on the microcontroller, but it's not getting the instructions. So the shift register, the black chip on this white board, is just going to sit here indefinitely until it gets further instruction. So that just goes to show the microcontroller is truly what's in charge. And if there's no instruction set from that, it doesn't do anything different. So this is just going to quickly pick up where it left off. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I connect that, it shoots right back into the program again. That's why when the display or the microcontroller lose connection to each other, it turns into quite the fit between two pieces of hardware, because the other one's not sure where the other one left off, so you do get some strange results. But that is, in fact, what happens with that, and it's very interesting in that regard. I hope that clears that up a little bit, though. I'm very grateful. I actually still had this wired. I haven't looked at this particular board in quite some time, because I've been so focused on this Hoot project. I mean, to truth be told, I have other registers here, the in-style shift registers. I didn't understand how to program those, and I still have to get back to that, because I did promise a friend I would figure it out, but it's been shelved for the time being. But that's okay. It's not forgotten about. It literally just sits as a reminder on my desktop to remind me to go back to it sometime. To be honest, it's probably going to happen sometime after I'm done building the Protogen, or if I have some time on a weekend. So yeah, that makes up that. And that is something that I find interesting in comparison to the smaller screens we've used, because I don't recall orange was due to a defect in the dyeing process, as it didn't skin the top good enough before dipping. You know, that's really funny that wasn't supposed to be intentional, and it's easily one of my favorite things about the Proto Head, because I've never seen an orange prut like that. What turned out to be a defect in one point of view ended up being really cool in another. It's funny how things work out like that. What did I do with the display? I put it somewhere. I wanted to look at the back of the current display we've been playing with for this menu, and I don't know what I did with it. Oh, there it is. You're looking at someone who's got a box full of wires right now, trying to carefully pull out the thing I need without damaging it. There we go. This is another microcontroller with our tiny display. What I wanted to see, though, on the back of this one is if there was a shift register on the back. And if we take a good look at the back of this, there isn't one. Looks like the display is just tied in with this really fine ribbon cable. And then on the other side is the display. So the concept is the same for how we're handling, but the hardware that's connected is different. That's why we have a different library that controls this little display over the really big one that we've been playing with this evening. But the fact is that as long as we have both libraries, we can mix and match the technology, and it's not going to bother anything. So, yeah. And then, I had just Bethesda game. What? They had just a Bethesda game, it seems like, where a bug is a feature. You know what? If Bethesda can do it, we can too. Okay, so I forgot to show this while it was live, but it's exactly the same information over and over and over again. Didn't miss much. This is the refresh rate that shows up in the terminal here. And it's 200 frames per second, or 201. It varies by a frame. And that makes up that. Now, something really cool I came across. You'll notice there's a new icon on my desktop that was not here before. And this is a really cool piece of software. Mountain Man, you might like this too if you don't already know about it. And it's called LED Matrix Studio. I don't know how to use it yet. That's going to involve spending some time reading through documentation. But very briefly, just to give you an idea of what's up. Okay, cool. All right, you're going to love this. So that's our pixel shape. This is the size of our stuff here. Let me hit create. And now I am in an editor for the size display we have. And let's say that I want this pixel to be green, and I want this one to be cyan, and maybe I want these to be all cyan, and you know, maybe I don't want that one green. Maybe we'll do all blue, right? So I can straight up, very crudely, draw some stuff, and then hit this generate code button to spit out something that we can use. I'm gonna be real with you. I do not know to the extent of it at this time. It is like doing pixel art, you're right. And that I thought was pretty awesome. So that I'm 100% planning on playing with in the evening here. In the evenings to come, I mean. I did an encoder that would accept PNG. Alright, cool. Because I to be completely honest, I don't know if this is gonna work. But I came across this tool and this seemed really neat. So it was written by a guy that was just sick of writing by hand his matrices and then putting them into the computer. I'm like, dude, if you can handwrite matrices on a piece of paper, you are beyond the word of smart. We need a new word for you because that is insane level of attention to detail to be able to do the actual shift that goes into the register on paper. The rest of us need a tool to help us figure that out. I'm one of those people. So yeah, this is a super cool thing. And I'm really looking forward to using it.
Yes, I am sure. So yeah, that puts us into that. And then let me see here.